Hello and welcome to another episode of the Destiny Truthcast. I am Lost Souls. This is episode 53. As always, joined today by my co-host, RedWingGirl. Hi, RedWingGirl. How are you today?
I'm doing very bad. I'm sick as a dog. It sucks. How are you doing, Souls?
I'm doing all right. I'm sad you're not better yet. You've been under the weather for the last week or so, and I'm glad that you're able to join us today, though. But I wish you were feeling better.
Yeah, I'll live. It's all right.
Well, we have another special program today, all about Grimoire lore and Luke Smith, and we have two new guests with us today. From the BNet forums, we've got zAnonymous, and from the Destiny lore podcast, we've got AnonPig. And so glad to have you both here with us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
So we'll start with you, Z. I've been hoping to have you on the podcast for 2 years now, I believe, and we're finally able to time it out so you could join us today.
Yeah, it's good to finally be here. I finally had some days open. Work had me tied up, but guess I'm free now.
I heard you quit your job just so you could join.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. Job had me working every Sunday pretty much. Every Saturday and every Sunday. Was a workaholic, but figured I'd free up some time. Finally get on the podcast, yeah.
Well, we appreciate that very much. That's an amazing commitment to join. And in all seriousness, though, I think a lot of people are familiar with you on the BNet forums. You're a very prolific poster, and I think a lot of people will be interested to hear about the person behind the gamer tag and the posts they see all the time. So if you could just let the community know a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm just any normal person, I guess. I'm a recent college grad. I live out in California, Bay Area to be exact. But I was a day one player, like many of the people who probably tune in. I've been a Warlock main since I've started. I've always been into the magic characters when it comes to RPG type games. So in terms of PvE or PvP, I've mainly been a Crucible player.
We have another Warlock main on the program, which makes me very happy. Usually RWG somehow gets us all Titans on the program.
Well, you have to cave into the Warlock every once in a while.
We are the master race.
Said no one ever.
So, are you more of a PvE or PvP player, did you say?
I'm more of a PvP player. Most of my time has definitely been spent in the Crucible. I still like the PvE side, but usually I'll gravitate towards the Crucible.
And when you're PvPing, what type of weapons do you tend to be drawn to? Are you a meta player, anti-meta? What kind of weapons do you use to go into battle there?
I'll probably get some hate for it, but I'm mostly a meta player. But to be honest, I know shotguns have been in the meta, in and out of the meta, but I've been a shotgun player. I usually switch around primaries depending on what's the most effective, but I've pretty much been a shotgun player since the game came into being.
And what do you think of this final meta that we've got going up until the end of D1? What's been your take on where we've ended up?
I think it was quite an extreme solution to at least what I think was an over-exaggerated problem. I have to be completely honest, I completely hate the change.
What is it, the ammo, or what is it about where we've ended up with this last meta that has turned you off to it the most?
I think what I disliked was the change in the special ammo, or the philosophy behind it, especially since for the past 2.5 years we've had special ammo in the game. So for them to make such a drastic change and expect people to essentially change how they play the game for the final portion of their first rendition kind of turned me off.
Yeah, I have found that I don't even really use my special anymore. On occasion, but I just pretty much ignore special crates. And then there are a lot of times in play where I'll think, I'll be in a situation where I'm using my primary and I'll think, wow, a year and a half ago, I would have swapped to my fusion there and the outcome might have been completely different, but it's completely changed how I experience and play the game with the changes they made. That said, I think that D2 and a lot of the changes we're seeing to it have been driven by the fact that this system we had with primaries, specials, and heavies, and the basically two different classes of one-hit kill weapon types made it so impossible for them to balance the game to where their only recourse was to take away ammo, and I think that shows how broken the D1 system was. And so to that degree too, I also think that the changes they made were probably to a large degree to test things out for D2 with the pulling ammo.
Well, we know that because Hamrick told us that. He said that they purposely switched to the sidearms because they were making that as a primary. So what surprises me about that, though, is that now that they've done their testing and, whatever else, and they've gone on to, in the final process of D2, that they're keeping it that way because, as you said, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, it's sure there's green crates everywhere and, you can float around all the green crates and grab your snipers and fusion and shotguns, but it's really inconvenient when you might be standing at the green box trying to fill up your fusion rifle, which you then have to wind up to shoot somebody, while meanwhile some guy with a sidearm can just come up and shoot you right away. And I think that's the point where people are getting sort of annoyed with it. So I kind of wish that they would have opened up a little bit more of a diverse special weapon whatever before they walk away. But as they've said, the sandbox is closed. It is what it is.
Yeah, I felt like Destiny 1 has always was supposed to be a fast-paced game, even though the kill times weren't as quick as, say, Call of Duty. I always felt that it was supposed to be you spawn and you get into action. I never thought that you were supposed to spawn and you're supposed to solve an ammo issue.
Well, I kind of feel like I don't think they intended people to have as free access to all three type of weapons as you're moving through PvP. And I think as it progressed, it was clear that they wanted special and heavy to be more like, a fluke or a special kind of, arrangement. Like in Halo, nobody got those, really powerful special weapons and heavy weapons. Those were drops and one person got them, and they're sort of carrying that on through D2. And no one really complained about it because they hadn't really dealt with it because it was never brought to, to start with it. I think what'll be difficult for some people is kind of going back. It would be like a step back for a lot of people who played the game the way it was before, where you had the viability of having all three weapons and having everyone have heavy when it drops and having green ammo for everything. And I think that's going to have somewhat of an effect on a lot of people in D2.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it would have been nice if, they did that test phase, but would have opened it back up at least for the end of D1. D2 is going to be a different thing, but it would have been nice for D1 to end kind of with that even play. So we also have with us today AnonPig of the Destiny Lorecast. So how are you doing today, Anon?
I'm doing all right.
If you could, just let the community know a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do within the Destiny community.
I'm a lore guy. I've always been a lore guy. That's pretty much what I do. I'm on the Destiny Lorecast. I write blog posts for Ishtar Collective. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I tweet a lot about random crap and news. Any news that are going on, I'm usually pretty on it.
What got you into lore? And I know you've been the lore guy for a long time, because I was actually Googling something on a piece of lore probably about a month ago, and Google popped up, an article, and it was from like early 2000, or I'm sorry, a BNet forum post from like very early 2015, maybe even the end of 2014, I'm not sure. And I clicked on it, and it was by you talking about whatever subject I was looking up at the time. So what got you into the lore to begin with?
Yeah, like not to brag, but when it comes to like lore on the forums, at least, I was not the first, but I was probably the most consistent in the beginning before I completely fell off. Because there was one other guy who made a few posts, and then he just sort of disappeared. And I was like looking at the game and playing the game, and everything felt really cool. I didn't really think the story was too great, like the linear in-game story. So I started looking at the cards, and I was like, these are cool, and I can probably do something with this. And I didn't really know how to go about it. But then I saw a post from a guy, Aeon Boom, and he made some, I don't even remember what the post was about. He makes it, and everybody starts freaking out and saying there needs to be a lore clan. Like, there's not a lore clan right now, and there needs to be one. So everyone was pushing him to make a clan. I was pushing him a lot. And when he finally made it, he's like, hey, you should be an admin for the clan. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, if I'm going to be an admin for a lore clan, I should probably, like, really know my shit. Like, it shouldn't be, like, oh, yeah, he's the admin, but he doesn't actually know what he's talking about type of thing. So I was like, okay, let's sit down and just, like, really, like, read the Grimoire. So, like, I read all the Grimoire, and I was like, okay, that's interesting, Like, I felt like I had a grasp on it. But it really took off because it was in December when I got snowed in, and I just made a poll post on BNet saying, what do you want to know about? Like, I'm going to ask the community, what do you guys want to know about? What do you want a post to be? And everyone voted Vex, so I made everything to know about the Vex. And, like, I read everything there was on the Vex, everything concerning the Vex, like, everything that can be about the Vex. Like, I did crazy research on it, and I made a post. And then at the end of the day, I made the post, made another poll. What do you want to know about? And they're like, the Hive. So I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do the Hive. And I made like maybe 5 or 6 posts within a week or two, and it just sort of took off from there. Reading the entire Grimoire front to back, like everything there was, several times to make these posts, it just sort of like solidified it. Like my best friend Guardian, whenever he talks about me in this way, he's always saying Anon has some crazy way to pull a random card out of his ass. Like if someone's it used to be, not so much anymore because now there's just too much, but it used to be like back in the early vanilla days, if you were talking about a card, I'd be like, I know like you don't have to like really detail the card. You can just be like, what that card where the guy sort of did that thing? I'm like, oh, it's this card. And you're like, no, I'm pretty sure it's that card. I'm like, no, I'm fucking right. Like I know I'm right, type of thing. But yeah.
So you're the Rain Man of the Grimoire cards?
I mean, like I used to be. Now I would say, like, if you have a question, I could probably answer it, which was actually one of my most successful and dangerous posts on BNet, because I actually at one point, and this is sort of what made me stop, because it just sort of shook me up a bit. I made a post saying, ask me anything about the lore, and like I will answer it, and it just sort of blew up. And I was answering all these questions, and it's like midnight, and I go to bed, And I wake up the next morning, like at 5 a.m. and I'm about to go to work. I just check the post, and some people were saying like, "Holy shit, dude! You got ninjas all over your post." And ninjas, Bungie forum moderators came through and were deleting so many of my answers. And I was like,
Why? Really?
Yeah. A lot of my answers.
Any reasoning given you?
I was not told anything, and I responded to them. I was like, holy shit. I mean, I don't know what to do, and I was like, I guess I'll just keep answering questions. And I tried to answer more questions, but my posts weren't showing up. So I had a friend say, like, hey, can you go check this post, see if any of my answers are there? And he's like, none of your answers are there. I was like, awesome, I got banned. So I was banned for a month, and I edited the post. Like, I was like, okay, guys, I'm done. I'm not doing lore anymore. Like, I don't know who I stepped on that did not like that. I was answering questions in the lore, but I'm done. And it was probably like 2 months after that I got back in.
That's crazy.
Well, I noticed that once they ban you, everything that you've said after that gets removed. So it may have not been that they went through and gotten rid of all of the individual ones. It may have been one response that you gave, and then everything else was removed after they made the decision to ban you. But that just sounds weird to me.
The highest rated structure, like on the forums, there's like the new, and then there's the highest rated, the trending. A bunch of my posts were highest rated. After that event, they were all no longer highest rated, and my the thing where you can see recent activity, that was all pushed back to November 5th of the previous year.
Well, real quickly, a true story. There was a point in time where they actually made a change to where if a post was trending, all it took was one person to dislike it to knock it off. And that was a thing for a while. But to get to a little bit more about you, what was it that got you into to doing a podcast on lore? How did that come about that you decided to get into podcasting? And how did the Destiny Lorecast come together?
Handsome Dragon just asked me. He's like, hey, do you want to do well, actually, he didn't first ask me. He was asking me about a podcast. He was like saying like what could I call it? Because he wanted to go out on his own and do his like own type of thing. And he was like, who could we get? What could happen? And then I was like, I don't really want anything to do with it. I don't really know if I want to do a podcast. And like I gave him a name, and then he's like, hey, do you want to be a part of it? And I was like, I mean, like, I guess. I just don't want to be, like, an integral role or anything. I just want to be a guy who's also on it. Like, don't put me in charge of anything. And then as time went on, I'm doing everything now.
So how long have you been doing it, and what's been your favorite thing about doing the podcast?
I mean, we've been doing it for about a year now. We're just about to hit our year mark, and every guest we ever get on is awesome to have on, and it's like always a very unique experience. And I feel like I owe being on the podcast, all the listeners, like all the guests that have come on, I owe getting an invite to all of that, an invite to the Destiny 2 reveal, to all of that. And really my favorite part is like just getting to do it, really, just getting to talk to people, and like getting to have my friends on all the time that like I talk to them like on Twitter and stuff, and like in some lore DMs that we have, and it's awesome to get them on and actually talk to them, not this like, oh, they're typing, let me wait to see what they have to say, but to be there and talk to them and have our theories and discuss them, and it's like open them up and tear them apart and all that.
So I suppose both of you guys have seen or heard the Luke Smith interview, and a lot of things have touched a lot of different subjects. One of them is Grimoire. One of them is the separation of PvE and PvP. Then there's 4v4 PvP and, guided games. There's a lot of things that have come out, including No Beards. Have both of you seen or heard or read or heard Luke Smith's interview on Kotaku, and if you have, what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I've read a little bit of what he said. I was kind of surprised, but then I kind of wasn't surprised either because it is, Luke Smith. But I think I just felt like the intentions were good, but the execution wasn't necessarily ideal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble how they were sort of transitioning him into some of the, questions and some of the answers. I kind of felt like he wasn't really elaborating a lot of what was going to happen, but some of it was sort of cut and dry, like one example, guided games. Souls and I have talked about this before. A lot of people were talking on VNet about matchmaking, and especially where it came in for the raids specifically, or end game content, that most people felt like it should have started at the normal, not the heroic. And so I'm a little surprised at the backlash as the guided games are only able to be active for the normal games. What did you think about that?
I understand the backlash a little bit, because from my personal experience, usually when I run raids, as of now, you need to LFG for both raids. But for me, I feel like once you learn the mechanics, I never understood why there couldn't be matchmaking, because you guys, run raids. I feel like once you understand it, you don't really need. Well, maybe let me walk back a little bit. I think the reasoning behind them keeping matchmaking out of the raids was that they wanted to make sure that you were running with people you were communicating, and all those necessary things. Maybe what they could have done was, add matchmaking, but add a way to maybe filter out, because I think what Soul's idea was to just add lobbies in. I think that was a really good idea. You could set up a lobby and you could say, we need this, and this, and it's essentially an LFG, but it's in the game. So you can matchmake, people can see what the requirements are, and then you could just fill up the lobby like that. And I think that should have been for both normal and heroic, because usually you can even see on the LFG, people don't necessarily need the best communication. They just need people who understand the mechanics.
Right, but if the purpose of guided games is for you to go in and select a clan that suits your gameplay style and roll with these guys for a couple normal raids, then eventually you're going to build, or the theory I would think would be is to build a relationship with this clan so that you do go on to play the harder difficulties with them. I mean, I think that's sort of the purpose of it.
Of course, but there's also people who have a clan, but they don't necessarily have enough people online at the same time to run a heroic. So are you going to be able to join multiple clans if that's the case? Because, I understand you want to make the relationships, but sometimes, if you're in a clan already, you don't necessarily need to form a relationship with the clan. You just need another person who knows the mechanics to get you through the raid that week.
True. Anon, how did you think the guided games reveal from just allowing normal as opposed to heroic went? Were you opposed to having guided games for heroic, or do you think that just having it for normal is okay?
Ultimately, I'm opposed for it to be just normal, but I do see sort of both sides, and it's like you said, their ideal scenario is when you're looking for a group, you're finding new friends to play with. It might not even necessarily be join their group, but just become their friend. And you can join multiple groups. You don't have to join the clan. You're getting some of the benefits. You're adding them to your friends list, you're seeing them on, And I get that. They want that to be the experience, because I do not want LFG. LFG would be bad. Whereas, like, this is, like, it's more inviting. It's more, here's a group of friends, not a group of random people just sort of all coming together. Where, like, an LFG in-game could be 6 random people who do not know who anyone is. And that could go horribly wrong. Whereas guided games, it's 4 or 5 people who are friends looking for 1 or 2 more people. So it's more of a, like, hey, come play with us, come hang out with us type of thing, and we'll, like, sort of bring you into the group. And after, like, an hour or 2 hours in the raid, you have this relationship with someone. So it is the better option. But when the normal raid is out and then run and then done, no one's really running normal raids anymore. It's hard raids. So it just feels like there's such a limited window of opportunity to actually make friends, to the point where guided games will actually become obsolete. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. It's going to be at the launch of the first raid, when it's just normal mode for like a month or 2. Guided games is going to be blowing up. It's going to be a success. It's going to be great. And then when hard mode drops, it's going to plummet in usage so far that Bungie's going to be like, oh, well, let's kick it to hard and see what happens.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't even actually think about that, but I think you're right. I think once Heroic is released and you've been through normal, it probably will slow down. But I think also, too, that probably would only be true for the players who don't raid like every single week on all 3 characters, every single raid, like I do. Maybe for the casual person who may do a raid once or 3 times a month, if at all, So I don't know. I sort of see what you're saying there for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's gonna be, there's literally going to be no one using guided games. I'm saying it's gonna be a drastic shift in the number, and also I feel like you're always gonna have people like the individuals who don't raid. You're always gonna have those people looking for a normal raid, but you're not gonna have the clans anymore, because usually the clan, like a clan has that group of people. It's easier for them to get in the raid. It's easier for them to hit the next light level cap, so that they don't need normal anymore. They need hard. So when they need hard, they're not looking for normal. The clans will not be looking for normal. The individuals will be looking for normal. And that's where it suffers.
Yeah, I just feel like Bungie has, they have their ideal vision. I just don't think they're being realistic enough about it.
Well, a couple things on this. I think that, as RWG was saying, I think that their ultimate goal is for people to, if not find and join clans, to build friends lists in game, to where there's more people on to reach out that you've raided with and say, hey, you want to run with us today? Because, I mean, if someone runs with someone through guided games, they don't necessarily have to join that clan, but, that's another group of people they've met and they've run with. Yeah, I was always, like you said, Z, a proponent of the lobby system. I thought that was the way to go, like Gears and Perfect Dark. But this is a pretty close approximation what they're doing, but with the clan functionality built into it. But the thing that's, back then, we just wanted something in the game. We didn't want to have to go outside the game. And it was pretty much universally said at that time, just give us something for the normal mode raids, and people, so people can at least meet up and find groups there that they can go onto the hard mode. So that surprised me with the backlash. But the other thing is that, yeah, it's not good. It's just going to be for normal mode, but there's no saying that it's not something that they won't implement for hard mode down the road. I mean, this is a system that they've got and they're testing internally, but it hasn't been used in the wild. It's never been put out there for everyday Guardians to use. They have no idea how this is going to actually play out with actual players in the game. And so that's the other thing that just kind of is just surprising to me is that, you know, it doesn't surprise me that they'd want to limit it to normal mode when it comes out, because there's probably going to be a shit ton of bugs and kinks to work out of things. Like Luke said in the interview on Kotaku, which me personally, I thought it was one of the best interviews I've ever heard, and there was a ton of information there, way more than I expected. But he said, you know, when you make a new game, you find new things to step in. And there's going to be, you know, you want to make it a perfect game, you want it to be the best it can be, but things come up. And so it's just not surprising to me that they'd want to limit that to normal mode and deal with it on that level, see how it functions in the wild, get all the kinks worked out, and then possibly down the road move that to the heroics as well. And then to Anon, what you were saying as far as the drop-off, I'd be very surprised if they haven't thought about that and have some kind of system in place, and we'll see what happens. But I know they've talked about there will be clan rewards that can be earned across the clan for doing, and they do this in World of Warcraft on kind of single time things, like with the different things you can unlock, armor pieces and heirloom armor and whatnot for characters. But, you know, there could be a system where if you run a normal mode raid and you run, you know, someone through with guided games, you unlock like a Nightfall tier reward for everyone in the clan that week or something, to make it worth the clan's while, you know, to go and do that. So until we see what it actually entails, I think it's just a little early, in my opinion, for all the backlash that they've gotten, because again, it's something we've asked for 3 years, and you know, it's something's better than nothing. And like I said, I think that people are not really thinking through all the ancillary things.
Well, I mean, part of it too is the fact that there are numerous LFG websites that are generating revenue off of creating, you know, raid teams and others things. And I kind of feel like, you know, had they stepped off and D1 with the type of, you know, in-game matchmaking that you guys talk about, you know, it may have been a topic of discussion worth noting, but there's two things that stand out. One is that, and the other is the fact that they have been adamant that raids have to be played with people that play together well and can, or whatever their reasons are. And I just think that this is sort of a compromise on those that were really against it within, you know, Bungie, and those that heard the community and wanted something in game. And I think so. This is sort of a compromise. There's good and bad with all of it, and they could expand it. You know, we don't know how far it's going to go. It could be that it dies off a little bit as everybody gets through the normal raids and normal whatever, and, you know, it could die off. But it also could be expanded on, or it could be very successful. You know, not everybody wants to do hard raid. You know, there isn't any statistics right now that we know about. If it was easier to get into a raid, would you do it? You know, we know that the community that actually has done these endgame activities is very slim. So, you know, we'll see how far it goes. I just think, you know, as you said, we just have to sort of wait and see how it goes on.
I just think what they could have done is just fully jumped in and committed and let us decide for ourselves whether we wanted to essentially interact with each other the way that they feel that we should, because it's I feel like they have this philosophy, and instead of, you know, trying to guide us into their philosophy or gently push us in that direction, they're kind of just forcing us into it. Because I don't know, maybe what I always thought they could do is just say, hey, you know, we feel like you should only use guided games for normal. So you meet people, you make a relationship, and those are the people who you're going to run heroic with. But we're going to give you the option to use the matchmaking in heroic, and if it works for you, it works for you, and if it doesn't, then maybe you'll see it, our way. But at least give us the option, because I know there's a lot of players out there who don't necessarily want to go through the clans or go through groups. They just want to find 6 people or 5 other people and go through it, and that's the end of it. There's no adding friends or anything like that. Maybe it'll make it easier for them in the long run to get it done the next week, but that's just how some people are. Because I know even though the LFG can leave you with terrible experiences, the guided games can do that as well. And with the LFG, once you're done with that group, you're done with that group. And like you're saying with the guided games, if you don't like the group you're playing with, then that's the end of it. But there are also people who you find through matchmaking that are infinitely better than you would have thought. And that could be a different way to make the relationship that Bungie wants us to make.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but, it would really suck, and we saw this in Prison of Elders, where you enter into a situation where you go to go get the chest and you get booted, or somebody quits in the middle of taking down a boss, or, that can happen in LFG, that can happen in anything, and it can happen in this as well. And I think the point is to establish a little bit stronger bonds with the people that you go in there with. So one of the other things Luke Smith talked about is the separation of PvE and PvP, and a lot of people are really pissed off about this for all kinds of reasons. What are your guys' takes on that?
People are pissed off that it's not going to be separated, that they, at least at launch, and this is something that RedWingGirl talked to Josh Hamrick and James Sy about pretty extensively at the reveal, and she can tell you Hamrick's take on that. But yeah, people are pissed that it's going to be kind of a unified experience at launch.
At launch, it absolutely has to be a unified experience, because they do not have the testing capabilities that is millions of players playing the game. They have a couple hundred, maybe, people testing this game. So they can't really base like, oh, is this weapon too good in PvP? Is this weapon too good in PvE? Where's that line? So putting them on like, this is the scale. Now, this weapon is underperforming PvE, but overperforming PvP. Let's balance that out. Let's make better PvP, or better PvE, little less PvP, and stuff like that. You can't just throw in like, let's just fuck the scales, like we'll put it on random and see what we get, and then we'll just go from there. It would be chaos at launch. At least now it's at least some form of like, all right, let's see what we're working with. And they did say it has the potential to be different. It's not just because it is at launch the same doesn't mean it will always be the same. And I do think it should be different. I do think the biggest thing I think is fall off range and ammo capacity. I think those two things need to be drastically different in PvE compared to PvP. But aside from that, it's like handling and reload speeds and like all that. It's like that could stay. That could be the same, I think.
Right, but that's not what Luke Smith said. He backtracked everything that I heard at the reveal and said that that's the goal, is to make them the same. And so what you're talking about with ammo capacity, I mean, because we saw it, we saw that, the whatever was happening in PvP, was mirrored in PvE. No longer could you go up to Skolas and shoot the hell out of them with a shotgun, because after that, they nerfed shotguns. And in Taken King, we no longer had, the impact that we had on snipers, or the ammo that we could get to do what we were doing before, or the ammo capacity in machine guns, because of everything that was happening in PvP. And so there's a lot of fighting between the two because of those reasons, which I think is a good point. So what I was hoping was, when I had asked those guys about it, would be that I didn't think it was going to be separate, but I was kind of hoping that there would be a little bit more balance where there wouldn't be constant nerfs. But it kind of sounds like, it's going to be the same way that it was in D1. If they feel like there's a gun, let's just say it's the Mida, and it's just doing too much damage to a Guardian, but is fairly average in PvE, whatever nerf occurs to that gun in PvE, we'll just deem it useless now in PvE.
To be fair, the Mida was actually OP in PvE before it was OP in PvP.
I know
because
it's a bad example.
Like, the fix that was for PvP was a long time coming for a fix in a PvE sense. The bosses couldn't touch you. They were stunned. It was awesome, and I think guns should be like that in PvE, absolutely, especially in exotic. But it was actually pretty OP in PvE. But I mean,
right? But
I hope the second statement that has you worrying is more of a miscommunication, and it's just, because I have a hard time believing that with all the complaints in D1 that they would have learned nothing. I have a hard time believing that. I'm being optimistic on that. That's the type of thing that I feel like you really can't comment. Like, you really can't say Bungie is fucking up before it happens, but it's the type of thing like, hey, Bungie, be aware, we don't like that. Like, we want changes between the two. Don't make a gun a scout rifle in PvE and then an auto rifle in PvP. Like, they need to be the same gun, but like, let them have, like I said, I think ammo capacity and range are really the two things that need to be inconsistent across the board.
Yeah, and I got out of it like that their goal is to have it be a consistent performance, which again, RedWingGirl, as you pointed out in a post the other day, it's something that Wisniewski said on one of the was it one of the live streams, I believe.
Yeah.
But I think that's their goal, but I think that there was also something to what Hamrick told you at the reveal, which was it'll be not separated at launch. It'll be that consistent experience, but then as it comes to when things need to be balanced, they'll see, and they have said that they're able to balance weapons on an individual level with Destiny 2. It won't be if this certain auto rifle is performing in a way they don't like, that the entire auto rifle class will see changes because of it. So I think that it's something that I agree with you, Anon. I think that they have to have learned their lesson from D1 as far as letting PvP dictate performance in PvE. So I think that we will, at least in my opinion, hopefully see that separation as we get into the game.
Z, what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel like PvE and PvP should play?
I mean, do you guys think anything was really ever overpowered in PvE besides Gjallarhorn and the Black Hammer?
I didn't think anything was overpowered in this game ever.
I think things were, but they should be.
Yeah, because PvE, it's supposed to be a challenging experience, but I feel like for PvE, there's nothing really wrong with having weapons that are overpowered, especially with something like the Gjallarhorn or the Black Hammer. Well, it also tied into the RNG because a lot of people didn't have it, so a lot of people were irritated with it. But I feel like if you're going to earn something from the game, and that's overpowered, at least in the PvE setting, it's perfectly fine. So if they're going to balance in the Crucible, I feel like it shouldn't affect PvE. You should have as much, ammo. You shouldn't lose ammo on death. I don't think any of that should be a thing.
Well, the other thing that... Go ahead, RWG.
I was just going to say, though, but the whole point of some of the rewards that you get in PvP are those that you carry over in PvP. So if I get an OP gun and I take it to PvP, you know, catch me if you can. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like go out and earn your own kind of a thing, even though I understand it's RNG. But like if it's a raid weapon that does a lot of damage, like the Vex or the Chaos Dogma, I kind of feel like, you know, well, go do the raid and get it. That's why I'm kicking your ass with it, because it's an end game gun and it kicks ass. But at the same time, it's just like a snowball effect. Then you get people who say, well, I can't play the raid because they don't have matchmaking, and then it just goes on and on and on and on.
It just depends on what they want, you know, what they want the Crucible to be. Do they want it to be like a real, you know, RPG game where to get the best weapons, you have to go get them from all parts of the games? Or do they want it to be, you know, no matter where you are, you know, in your Destiny experience, the Crucible is going to be a fair, you know, arena?
Well, the other thing that factors into this that I think people will change a lot of their opinions when the beta is out, and I wish the beta was out now, is that a lot of people are trying to look at these changes and look at what's coming with D2, and they're trying to apply those things to their knowledge of how Destiny works, which is Destiny 1. And it doesn't fit. Destiny 2, and you know, I can say this, RWG can say this, and Anon probably say this, I think would agree. Destiny 2 is not Destiny 1. I mean, it played nothing like Destiny 1. The changes to the weapon system with the power weapons and all the one-hit kill weapons being grouped together, and the double primaries essentially, and the new weapon classes that were added, it's a different game. And a lot of those changes are because of how fucked up everything was in Destiny 1, and how it was so difficult for them to balance things, to have things perform how they wanted. You know, and it wasn't just, everyone says PvP, PvP, PvP. It wasn't just PvP. It was in PvE as well, because they had situations where people were just standing and just, you know, grouped up or hiding and sniping a boss, you know, and just these bullet sponges, someone just hide and shoot 50 times with their black hammer or whatever. And so a lot of these changes that they've done with Destiny 2 are in place to make everything more balanced from the get-go. Everything is more grouped together where it should be in the defined roles, with all the one-hit kill weapons being together. And so I think that it's built into the system that even when they do have to make changes, you're not going to see the PvP bleeding into PvE like we saw in Destiny 1, just because, again, it's not the same game. It does not play the same, and the system is set up to not repeat those mistakes. And so, Anon, just your thoughts on that, having played Destiny 2 as well. Would you agree with that or no?
I would, and I mean, like I was saying before, I just don't think that they cannot learn from it. A big thing that they want, and what they said they want, is that they want guns to feel consistent across the board. And consistency does not mean that they need to be the exact same specifications. Consistency between PvE and PvE, like, really think about it. In PvE, your engagements, because bosses can stomp you and kill you, are naturally longer than they are in PvP, because they are putting us in these small maps. In PvE, you need a lot more ammo than you do to kill a single or even a few targets in PvP, with, like, trash mobs like Thrall excluded. You know, like, and when it is Thrall, it's not just one Thrall like it is in PvP, one Guardian. It's like 8 Thrall, which would be like equivalent to a few Guardians. But that's where I feel like they need to be consistent. There needs to be differences. The hand cannon ammo nerf practically broke the class for me, where it's like I'm running out of ammo too often. And the range nerf even further did that, where it's like my engagements, like I want to shoot from across the room. I'm just in a freaking room and I can't one-shot the dregs because I need to walk up 2 feet to be able to get that damage. And that bothers me. That I feel like that drastically affects the consistency across the board. And like you said, with the new system, I'm actually so pumped for the new system because people might think that it's sort of dumbing it down, but it's actually adding so many more new levels of like complexities, and I'm really excited to find out what is the proper balance, because sorry about that. What is the proper balance? Because it's not gonna be okay. Pick any primary that you feel good with and pick a sniper. It's gonna be okay. I need to cover my bases. Like what is this? What is this? And what is that? I need to have the proper setup, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and like I said, I still go back to what Mercules said about it. It feels broken. Destiny 1 feels broken after playing Destiny 2.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that it feels broken, but it's like I'm playing with these guns, and I'm like I feel like I'm being restricted now, because really the freedom of having two essentially primaries is so amazing. Like I feel like I can actually have a gun for any engagement, and then if I really wanted to, if I can get that power ammo, like I'm actually feeling powerful, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited because I know they've said it. The Suro shotgun that Donald Glover on the posters carrying, the Warlock, that is a single slug shotgun. That is a chaperone shotgun. And I'm not sure, now that we know there are linear fusion rifles as a weapon type, I'm not sure, maybe there's slug shotguns as well. So maybe there's even more of them. Like maybe there's a variety of them. And I'm like, oh my god, like there's gonna be so much more. Like there's so much to be excited for, and people are just like honing in on these like, but I like my sniper. It's like, shut up. Like, you know, like I liked my snipers too, but they were too good and they got nerfed so far into the ground that I don't like my snipers anymore. Now I can like my sniper again. That's amazing. Like there's just too much negativity.
Something else that has been a big point of discussion, and Dado actually put up a video. It kind of got my ire up a little bit today, but is the ranked playlists, and it's kind of a theme with a lot of, I think, is going on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I actually say something about that? Because I feel like ranked playlist is sort of like a buzzword, just like dedicated servers. People don't actually care so much about a ranked playlist so much as they do a separation between a heavily connection-based playlist and a heavily skill-based playlist. Because the very top-tier players and the very low-tier players don't want to sweat and don't want to get stomped all the time. Sometimes they want to go up against the people where it's like it's more relaxing and fun, or where they have a solid chance. And they have only confirmed not to have ranked playlists, which means they don't have a system in game that's saying, okay, I'm bronze rank, okay, I'm silver rank, okay, I'm gold rank, I'm platinum, I'm diamond. They don't have that, but they have quick play and competitive play, which I don't believe, and I'm pretty like fucking on the news, so I'm confident they haven't said it. They haven't said quick play is a heavily connection-based playlist. Competitive play is a more skill-based focused playlist, which I feel like if they would just be like, hey guys, that's what it is, everyone would be like, oh yeah, that's what we wanted. We were using the wrong terminology. Our bad, you know, because that's what the fucking community is. It's just people screaming to the point where they can't even get the point across.
Yeah, and the thing, like, you know, as I was saying with the guided games, you know, it's going to be in the normal mode. It's something that could be in hard mode after. You don't know. I mean, again, there's going to be kinks to work out. But, you know, there's this outrage that, and Luke said they've got something they're working on. It's not necessarily ranked playlist, but something along those lines that may or may not be in the game and might not be till October, I think he said. But Luminosity, I guess, in response to this, said, it makes sense for them not to have ranked playlists when the game launches anyway, because you want to give players time to actually play the game, learn how Destiny 2 works and actually get a grasp on it, and let everyone, actually learn the game before you start ranking people and putting them in that environment, which I thought was a very astute comment. And so, what did you think, Z, on the whole ranked playlist debacle?
I've always wanted ranked playlists because I've always been a competitive player. But I think, Anon, you said they had it's quick play and competitive play as different playlists. Yeah.
I think that what you were just saying about Luminosity is actually something that's very accurate. I feel like people are overlooking the fact that games with seasons, games with that like ranked play, they have seasons and they have off seasons. So essentially, Destiny 2 it might not ever have ranked play, but you shouldn't be looking at it like that. You should be looking at it like Destiny 2 is starting in the off season, because you do need to be like, okay, I play like this, before you can be like, okay, let's set my rank on this. Like, I've never played this game before, so I like hand cannons. I'm going to be an idiot, run double hand cannon and linear fusion rifle, and I don't know how to use that, but hey, fuck it, right? And then you get like this crap rank, and you have to like work your way up so hard because you just jumped into it prematurely. I feel like it's the best decision if they are to implement a ranked playlist.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of proof of that. And just look at my KD. I think if I would have not screwed around in the beginning and like got overwhelmed and got killed as much as I did in the beginning and then stopped playing PvP and then went back to it, I don't think my KD would be so bad.
That's exactly what it is. It feels like they're almost doing us a favor, and we are just so like, we want the buzzwords to be in the game so badly that we aren't even listening to reason at this point.
So I would like to talk about a couple things that are going to be in the game, because another big complaint has been that Destiny 2 is just focused on PvP, and it's all built around PvP, and this was another one of Dado's things he was talking about that I disagree with, but is that PvE is going to suffer because of PvP, and I didn't see that. That wasn't my experience with our hands-on. They were begging people to play the PvP because the PvE was so engaging at the event, and everyone wanted to play the PvE, and they were like, come on, someone come play the PvP. But a couple of the things that Luke was talking about, one was the silent events. He said there would be more of something that they term silent events within the studio, which I guess would be like the thing that the enemies moving against each other. There's the famous one there in the Cosmodrome. I forget the Hive boss's name, the Knight, that was just a pain in the ass to kill. Anon, I know you know.
Ozak.
Yes. And so though, where he said there will just be a bunch of enemies, randomly spawn and start attacking. But the other thing was the flashpoints. And I thought this was something really interesting because it's something we hadn't heard about. He mentioned the lost sectors, and the dungeons there with the bosses and the loot. But he talked about flashpoints for the first time that I heard, which he said they're featured locations that they want people each week for people to go to, where there will be a bunch of events happening there. And there will be treasure maps, there will be special monsters, and it's things that for solo players to do, and when they do it, it will drop that Nightfall tier rewards, so you can get that high-end game loot for running solo content. And I thought that was something that was really cool that he brought up, and just no one has talked about and said a word about.
I actually have a little bit of a hope for that, because we sort of know what lost sectors are. Lost sectors are like a dead-end road that are hidden away, and they sound very similar to a flashpoint, but they're obviously not a flashpoint, because he's sort of saying, like, flashpoints are a cycling event. But have you ever exotic grinded on the Ultra Knight on the Dreadnought?
Oh, RedWingGirl and I have spent hours farming that guy in the Dreadnought.
Yeah, so think about that. It's this location that we go through on a couple of missions, and I think also a strike. And so it's not a dead end. It's just a place that gets opened up on missions. But what if, as a flashpoint, when you're on patrol, it also gets opened up? It's something like that, where these mission-only areas, the doors that should be closed, you walk by and be like, why is that open? And you can go in, and they have that boss, they have the treasure map, and then from the boss you get the treasure map. From the treasure map you go on the adventure, and on the adventure you fight whatever and find whatever. And they haven't said anything. I'm not like, I don't have any inside info or anything like that. That's just what I hope it is.
What were your thoughts when you heard about that, RWG? Because I know that's something that sounded like it was like right in your wheelhouse for how you like to explore and really see what there is to see in the game.
Well, I mean, they did. They showed us, they explained there would be treasure maps, there'd be dungeons, there's going to be all kinds of different little PvE activities. You know, it's not going to just be patrols and then, you know, one or two big bosses that show up. I think it's going to be full of stuff to do. I think they've learned that. You know, I think that's going to be a focus of what they're going to do. And I kind of just feel like, you know, a long time ago when they had their Activision call, they talked about how D2 is going to allow them to dump all kinds of stuff on us much faster. And so the whole ranked playlist and the whole PvP thing, the whole gun sandbox adjustments, you know, we're not going to get a raid right away. I mean, there's just going to be things that we're just going to have to just kind of wait for. But if you recall, you know, D1 was like that too. It didn't just start out. I don't think Vault of Glass was there when D1 came out. I think that was later. Yeah. So, I mean, this is sort of par for the course, but I just think that the activities are going to be much more frequent and larger for everyone to take, you know, a part of.
As I remember it, it went Iron Banner, Queen's Wrath, Vault of Glass, Iron Banner, and it was supposed to be Queen's Wrath again, but it was never seen again.
So we've the three of us have obviously played D2, and again, in my opinion, the PvE was light years forward. The strike was pretty fucking incredible, pretty epic. So many more bosses to fight, large set pieces, more dynamic fights. But Z, as someone that's just watched this content, what's kind of been your take? Because there is that feeling, and it's not, you know, it's pretty perpetuated on the forums, that Destiny 2 is a PvP-driven game. Is that something that you've gotten out of what you've seen, or what's been your reaction to things?
No, I haven't gotten that it's a PvP-driven game. I think that's just what people are focusing on now, because that's what people are focusing on with D1. I mean, I don't even think D1 is really as PvP heavy as people will make it out to be. Even like the last event, the Age of Triumphs event for D1, it was a PvE focused thing. But I'm just patiently waiting for beta and for release so I can get my thoughts together.
You're patiently waiting? How are you accomplishing that? Because I am, like, losing my mind.
Yeah, I find ways. One of the things I've tried not to do, actually, is the exact opposite of what you guys are doing. I'm trying to stay away from every little bit and piece of information that comes out, because what I don't want to do is when the game comes out is, already be fully and completely aware of what's going on, because we've received, a ton of information already. And as we get closer and closer to release, more and more things are just going to come out. So I kind of don't want release day to be spoiled.
So how happy are you that the beta is going to just be basically what we saw at the Dre event and what they showed at E3, and not opening up and showing us Patrol and showing us more of the game? Because a lot of people were pissed about that too, and people are saying what you're saying. No, we want to actually play the game on launch day.
Yeah, I have no idea why people would even be mad about that. They should give us the things that we're, asking for. We want to know how PvP plays. We want to know how PvE plays. And, just let all the mysteries and the secrets, and just let us find that stuff once the game actually releases.
So
yeah, that was roughly a quarter.
So I want to get to, before we get to our favorite moments, I want to get to a little bit of lore talk. Since we've got you here, Anon, and so there was a couple things with Luke Smith. There was the backlash over the removal, essentially, of the Stranger in D2. The Stranger won't make an appearance. And then there was also the comment that the Darkness will not be in D2, and that they're removing the term the Darkness, which Luke did say in his interview on Kotaku. That, he basically told us what D3 is going to be. And this is, again, another thing I think is just absolutely hilarious, is they told us what D3 is going to be, and no one is talking about it just because of all the salt over everything else. And they said D3 is going to be the story of the Darkness. But just your thoughts on those two bits of information, and what you thought when you heard that, and how you took it.
Okay, so I'll answer this in order of Exo Stranger and then the whole Darkness thing. Luke Smith is not the only person creating Destiny. He's not the only guy that's going to be in charge. There's Luke Smith's team, and then the team that made Rise of Iron, and going down the line, it sort of sounds like there's actually another team that's going to be there. Or maybe that the Rise of Iron team was meant to be a smaller team, and now they're a big team, so they need another smaller team. That type of thing. So he does not have the authority to say, the Extra Stranger is done forever, it's never coming back, because someone else can be like, hey, we're going to do an Extra Stranger story. Alright. But I feel like it's a bit of a miscommunication, because people keep saying, we want the Extra Stranger answers, we want to know why she did this and why she did that. And I feel like he is sort of trying to let people know, who is she talking to? Why did she need us for the Black Garden? Those questions are not going to be answered, because that was sort of part of the game. She's meant to be this mysterious, ununderstandable character that you're supposed to want to know, but never actually get to know. And I like that. And her involvement of the story, and of the story, by which I mean the vanilla story, because yes, vanilla had a story, it was just a really shitty one. It was, we're Guardians, we're sort of getting this crash course on the Fallen, and during so, we have this stranger following us, watching us, inspecting us, what's up with that? And then she contacts us, and she puts us through this, a couple small challenges. We prove that we're powerful. We prove that we're more successful than other Guardians that she has done the same for. And she needs our help. And we helped her, and she thanked us. That's a story. It was just really poorly told. It was just and it's over. It didn't have, the actions in between the major steps, so the major steps felt, really small. So the whole Black Garden story, unless they wish to revisit it and sort of do how the Undying Mind was trying to bring it back, because the Black Garden is still very important, cause they can do something with that. Unless they go to revisit it, her involvement with us and the Black Garden is pretty much over. Yeah, it's over. In the same way that Crota is over. Crota was rising up again to come destroy us, And we said no. We stopped him from coming back into the material world, and then to make sure he doesn't do it again, we go into the raid and destroy his soul. Oryx comes to get revenge, and that's what I mean. So, Crota was over, but now we're getting all these hints of Crota in The Taken King. Oryx is all mad. You destroyed my son. I'm gonna fucking get revenge. He's gonna come in, he's gonna try to do the same thing, and we're gonna stop him. We're gonna essentially do the same thing that we did with Crota. We're gonna stop him from ever being able to do that again. And that's sort of how the Exo Stranger, I believe, will come into the future of the game again, where maybe it's her directly, maybe she needs our help again, or maybe it's someone who worked with her and she died. She's not a guardian, she can't come back. So her companion is like, the only person that can help me has to be the guardian that helped her. So, no, there's so much more to learn about her, just like there's so much more to learn about everyone and everything in the game. But her story, as it was, absolutely is over. She cannot come back, and that can be it. Because, you know, not every character gets a full fleshed out history. Any book, any movie, every character does not get that. You know, very select few get that. It's ridiculous to think otherwise. Just because she was such a focal point doesn't automatically give her that right. So, on to the darkness. Absolutely, the darkness is not involved in Destiny 2. Thank fucking God for that, because Destiny 1 blurred the lines so horribly, and like Luke said, in Destiny 1, and I mean absolutely, in vanilla Destiny 1, they did not know what the darkness was. It is shown that they didn't, but they were figuring it out by presenting the story. They called everything the minions of darkness. Well, if they're all fighting for the darkness, why are they fighting each other? Because they're not actually all fighting for the darkness. And you can actually pick it up. In the game, and this sort of bothers me, vanilla, campaign vanilla Destiny, you can pick up that the Hive are the darkness. The Cabal have nothing to do with the darkness. And the Fallen, it looks like the darkness sort of fucked them up. The Vex, you have no goddamn clue. They are so out of control, crazy, it's impossible to pinpoint what they are fighting for, in my opinion. Then Taken King especially, Dark Below and House of Wolves did a good job sort of furthering the darkness narrative, but Taken King especially solidified what it is to be the darkness. With the No Time to Explain quest, we actually have a card. I have it.
I'm surprised you don't have the card memorized.
I do. I have it like paraphrased memorized, but I don't have it memorized. And I can't find it. I had it in front. Either way, it's the simulation core that you give to Lakshmi. It's a quote from Praetus Ghost. I saw the darkness, not the metaphorical darkness, the physical, real darkness. It wore a captain like a suit of clothes. So essentially, the darkness is this unshaped thing that just sort of controls it. It just seeps in and takes over the form of whatever. And what exactly do we see in the Black Garden? This shifting shape that comes out and takes over the form of 3 soul progeny. So that's exactly what the darkness is, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, we actually get the answer of what the darkness is, and this is solidified in the, I think it's the Worm God's Boon Warlock Bond from the Taken King, the King's Fall. It says how the 5 of them stood in thrall of the Formless One. This word, this capital Formless One. Maybe it could be sort of like the Taken King, where the Fallen really had, the House of Wolves really have nothing to do with Oryx, but there's a side quest where we're like, oh, the House of Wolves are after shit again, we gotta go stop them. Like, they could do something like that, where it's like, oh, the Hive are fucking up again, like, we gotta go stop them, we can get a little more on the darkness. But it should not be at all a focal point of the game, because it just doesn't make sense. They'd just be shoehorning it in, and it would really blur the lines again when they're actually starting to get more specific as to what it is, and that would be such a step backwards.
The Hive are fucking up again. I love that.
I didn't know Crota was such a fuck up, and he's the one that unleashed the Vex on the world. So Z, are you into lore at all?
Yeah, I dabble. I think when it comes to the stranger in the darkness, like what I'm looking for is just a little bit of closure, whether it be through, something, a little tidbit in the story, whether it be through, lore in just a small piece of lore that you find in Destiny 2 or anything like that. Because, like Anon was saying, even though everyone doesn't necessarily deserve their history and their entire story in the game, you still have to admit the stranger was a pretty big part of the vanilla Destiny story. So just to know even just like a hint as to where she came from, what she is, what her purpose, and I feel like everyone is just looking for a little bit of closure, not necessarily a fully dedicated storyline to what happened with the stranger.
I actually have sort of an argument about that, because I agree she does deserve more, and Harry Potter fans, people who've read the books and also watched the movies, will understand this completely. So a great way to look at this is Grimoire are books and what they are doing are movies. What we're getting in Destiny 2 is visual Grimoire, and we've actually gotten to see one already, at least in my opinion, what will be the replacement for Grimoire, Zavala's origin story. That has no bearing on the story whatsoever. It's so random. It's like, why is this even here? And I feel like that's supposed to be the Grimoire card represented in a video form, and that's awesome, and I loved it. It made me so pumped, and I was so fucking excited, and I was freaking out next to Handsome Dragon and Mr. Woodhouse, and I was just going nuts, and I'm smacking Handsome, saying, oh my god, he's a fucking Striker Titan. I fucking told everybody he's not just a fucking Defender Titan, because we already saw him use the Defender bubble, but now he's using the Striker Fist of Havoc. And he's like, yeah, I know, he's getting mad, but either way, it was awesome, but it left so much more to go unanswered. We see them fighting. Fallen are attacking the city, and they're killing people, and it's awesome. It's visceral, and it's beautiful, and it's, oh my god, this is awesome, and adrenaline pumping. But what the fuck is it? What's actually happening here? Is this Six Fronts? Is this Twilight Gap? What is going on? I have no idea. It's making this huge question of what the fuck is this? And then we see Shax. We see Shax as before this scene. We see Zavala first approaching the city before anything, and Shax is there, and Shax has both horns, and that's something you can't really actually do in a written form without like it being difficult. It's easy to do. It's not difficult to do, but they would have to specifically try for it. Then in the battle, we see Zavala and Shax only has one horn now, and you're like, oh my god, somewhere between the city just learning to stand and the city actually being a city, Shax lost his horn. Maybe he actually lost it in that battle, and that's awesome, and it's adding this new layer. And then there's this third Titan, who's not Lord Saladin, so who is this Titan? And you're just like, oh my god, who is this? And that's it. Who is he? Who the fuck's this guy? Why is there a third Titan here? That's obviously fucking important, but I have no idea who he is. So, as a lore nerd, I'm thinking like, well, this has to be Six Fronts, right? So if it's Six Fronts, that means it's Reza Lazir, because Reza Lazir was there during the faction wars, and the faction wars dissolved when the Fallen attacked the city, and that became the Battle of Six Fronts. So this should be the early onslaught of Six Fronts. But I don't know. I have to go off of this assumption based on the Grimoire that has previously existed, that this is Six Fronts. And I don't know. And I am a fucking asshole when it comes to being like, that is not confirmed. So that is not confirmed. This is not necessarily Six Fronts. I believe so wholly that this is Six Fronts, but anyone can go, I don't think it is. And I can be like, yeah, I mean, it might not be. I have nothing to say that it is, and I feel like that's where they're going to lose a lot. And to sort of bring it back to my original Exo Stranger topic, and I think I actually said Harry Potter. Harry's parents died, so he moves in with his mother's sister, the Dursleys, and his mother's sister has a history of Harry's mother being a witch and her not being a witch, being a muggle, being a normal human, for those who don't know. And in the books, in the Grimoire, in the books, you get this back history of how she actually is hating Harry, is allowing the poor treatment of Harry because of this resentment towards Harry's mother, because Harry's mother was special and she was a witch and she was getting to go off to do great things and this and fucking that, but she was just the normal child. She wasn't special at all. So when she has to look at the son that reminds her of her sister, who she's got all this hatred for, not necessarily hatred because they're sisters and you can't really hate, you know, it's hard for her, and she lashes out, you know, and you get that because of the books, but that's not in the fucking movies. None of that's in the movies. That depth, that, like, power is not there because it's unreasonable to think they're going to shoot a scene for every scene in the book. It's not possible because the budget, first of all, cannot sustain that. And no one's going to be sitting there through a movie like that. Like, if the game is like 20 hours of gameplay, it's like the campaign is like a 20-hour campaign, and 15 hours of that is just sitting there watching cinematics because they want to tell an in-depth story. People are going to be like, what the fuck was this game? Like, I barely did anything. I just sat there watching crap. And so many more people are going to be like, well, I don't even care. You know, I don't care about this. I just want to play the game.
But isn't this really more or less, though, about, you know, the writer that left Bungie and, you know, the person that created this Grimoire, which they created this game from? I mean, if he's not there to write the story, how can you continue it?
Staten was the writer who apparently left, and the rumor is he took his story with him, and that's why Bungie had to go through a massive rewrite. And that's when as the rumor goes, that's when they made the Grimoire. Not Staten made the Grimoire, and then he left, and now obviously the Grimoire can't continue. The Grimoire came after Staten. Writers of the Grimoire are like John Goff and Seth Dickinson, and I don't know, I don't want to say for sure that Jill Shar writes Grimoire cards. I have a very strong feeling that she wrote the flavor text for Palindrome, because like before the game even released, when Palindrome, or maybe day one when Palindrome was up, I saw Palindrome and its flavor text is Draw O Coward, which backwards is Draw O Coward. And I was like, oh my god, I don't even give a fuck about the stats. I don't care about the perks. I love this gun simply because of that line. And just out of nowhere, she's retweeting that. And I'm like, okay, well, I feel like she's sort of got a connection to that, because that was really, like, random. And I'm like I was freaking out, because, like, any writers, whenever they have any association, I'm like, oh my god, I'm freaking out. I'm a fucking fanboy.
Well, do you think it's possible that they might, I know that there's been talk of comics and things of that sort. Do you think that they may, you know, Halo had books, and do you think it's possible that maybe they'll sort of separate that whole kind of Grimoire in-depth description with perhaps books or comics or something like that to satisfy some of the people that really want to know more detail about some of the characters that they play?
I think it's absolutely possible. I think it's also absolutely a mistake, and here's exactly why. The Grimoire is free. You're complaining that it's not in the game. It's on your phone. It's on the computer. It's on the little freaking 7-inch screen that you carry around in your pocket all goddamn day. You always have access to it. I don't understand how there's actually a complaint that, oh, the Grimoire's not even in the game. Like, who cares? It's on your fucking phone. I don't always have my PS4 and a TV to use as a monitor. You know, I don't always have that with me, but I always have my phone. So no matter where I am, I can be reading the Grimoire. I can have a part of the game with me. And it's for free. And it's amazing, and it's great. But then there's the people who are just complaining, and I'm sorry, you're complaining for the sake of complaining. You're saying that there is no story. There is a story. It's just a bad story, and you're not allowing yourself to experience it because it's a bad story, and you're complaining for the wrong thing. You don't want the Grimoire in the game. You want a better story, which are completely different things. And because of that, Bungie listened.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, there's going to be a lot more scannables in Destiny 2.
I hate
and but my assumption would be that through the scannables, through the lost sectors, through these probably flashpoint events, through things that are going on in the game, there's going to be things that tell that deeper story. And so I know that, you know, it's probably very frustrating not having, again, you have that grimoire on your phone in your pocket that you can go reference. But to me, the lore community and players like yourself are even more important with D2, and your role becomes even greater, because without that grimoire in everyone's pocket, you all become the curators of the Destiny story. You're the ones that, these cinematics that you're telling us about, this, what could possibly be the Battle of Six Fronts, and you're putting that together, and whatever you get out of the game through the stories we see, through the scannables, whatever the little side things, it's going to be the lore community that puts that together in a form like the Ishtar Collective, that players can go and have that in their pocket again and can understand it. So I understand the frustration, but also I see it from Bungie's stance that a lot of people screamed for 3 years, why isn't this just in the game? Why do we have to go and read this on our phones? And players like yourself, you appreciated what it was, but there was a great percentage of the player base that never touched it, and they just wanted to go into the game and experience the story there. So I think that... Go ahead.
You know who complained that the Grimoire is not even in the game?
The people who aren't playing the game. The people who bought it on day one and felt so snubbed because the story was bad that they're just trying to take apart anything that they can. For 3 years, people haven't been telling me, like, oh, you're wasting your time reading the Grimoire. Like, no, they're like, oh, cool, you read the Grimoire? Like, they're excited about that. They know it's there. They know they have access to it. They just don't want it, and that's fine. If they don't want it, that's fine. There's so many people that don't care enough about the story, and the story has been getting better, and that's why the complaints have stopped. Taken King had a very awesome story of, like, it was very sensible villain that we were being taught to hate. He was in our face. He was mocking us, and he was showing off his fucking power, and it was great. It wasn't like, and now we're at the end, and I don't really know what the fuck that is. And it's weird. It's confusing, like it was with Vanilla or with Rise of Iron.
Is Talos the queen?
Oh, Teox, or Tau. Yeah, okay, I got what you mean now. The birth mother, not the mother, not matron. Matron means mother. The teacher of Oryx and his sister, or Arash and her sisters. I say no. I see no reason to think that Tau is the queen. Personally, I actually think Savathun is the queen. There's a lot I can go into on that, but we don't have time.
So what were you going to weigh in on, Z?
I just wanted to go back to the thing about the people who don't want to go on their phones to see the grimoire. I don't think it's necessarily that they don't care about the story, because I was one of those people who didn't necessarily want to have to go on my phone to get the little tidbits. And it's not necessarily that I didn't care about the story. It's just I felt like there was a much more easier way to do it. But my ideal for the grimoire was that, maybe every time you unlocked a grimoire card or a set of grimoire cards, it would trigger, a cutscene or an unlockable or something that you could go into the menu that was on the game so that you could see, and then it would pique that interest for everyone, because if there was, little cutscenes that they hadn't acquired or little bits of information that they couldn't get because they couldn't get the grimoire, then it would pique their interest, so they would start going outside to see, what exactly it is they're missing, because they have the full database offside, but then you could also see it in game. Obviously that would take a lot of money to have people doing cutscenes for, every single piece of grimoire, but then, like Souls was saying that it would be good for, the content creators and the people who were really into it, because they could be filling in the holes for people and they could be explaining, exactly what's going on through the cutscenes. I just think that a lot of people a significant portion of people who wanted the Grimoire to be in the game just thought that there wasn't enough of the story in the game, and then they just kind of got thrown off by saying the story's here, it's just not in the game. You have to go out to get it. Because like you were saying, Anon, the vanilla story, it was terrible. So to be given this terrible story and then say, oh, the story is here, you just have to go somewhere else to get it. It was off-putting.
I actually really agree with that. It's the fact that they just needed to have both. I feel like we're losing so much by not having Grimoire, and it doesn't have to be every Grimoire card gets a cutscene. Imagine if we get the Titan, we find Zavala, and we unlock his origin cutscene. But we also unlock his origin Grimoire card, and the Grimoire card is the cutscene, except it goes into more depth. That's all it is. So
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
There's 100 new Grimoire cards, and 15 of them have cutscenes.
Yes.
Like that's all it needs to be.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's literally exactly what I was getting at.
So we're at the part of the program where we talk favorite moments of the last couple weeks playing Destiny. So start with you, Z. What's been your favorite moment playing Destiny?
Favorite moment in the past couple of weeks. Let's see. I'll be completely honest. I haven't really touched Destiny in quite a while. Can I go to favorite moments in Destiny like ever? Is that okay?
Yeah, like how long have you not been playing, and just what made you stop for the time being?
It's been about 2 months since I played, but that's because I just, I was trying to make sure that I got out of school and didn't screw anything up, so I kind of put a lockdown on games and everything. But favorite moment from Destiny ever was it's something that didn't happen to me, actually. It's something that happened to my friend. You all know how difficult the Vex Mythoclass actually was to get. I kid you not, me and my group who used to raid in the VOG for the first year, and then a little bit after the Taken King came out, we were running VOG 3 times damn near every week, and everyone in my group had a Vex Mythoclass except my friend Brian, and he finally got the drop. But it was funny because he didn't have the inventory space, so he the weapon didn't actually drop in his inventory, and it was weird that he didn't notice at first, because I think it usually pops up on the screen. But he got back, and we were talking about running the next character, and then all of a sudden he just starts screaming, and we were like, oh, he probably got it from the postmaster. And he was like, we're going into Crucible, and we hopped into the Crucible, and we spent a cool hour or 2 in the Crucible, and he was just loving his Vex Mythoclass, because I think everybody had multiples, and it was the only gun he wanted in the game, and it took him over a year to get it.
Damn, I had a friend who had the same problem with Galahorn. He didn't get it until the very end, before they did the nerf, and a week before, I think, actually, and then they nerfed it, so I never really actually got to see the true potential of the Galahorn, vanilla Galahorn.
It was a pretty awesome weapon.
That's funny, because we ran Vault of Glass a couple weeks ago, and the new Vex is one of the few things that RedWingGirl still needed in the game, and it was the same thing. We got to the end and didn't get it, and I think it was on our final character of the week where she was like, fuck, gonna have to wait another week, and got back to the tower, and it was in her post master as well, and so she was really excited, kind of same deal.
I was one of those assholes that got it on my first run, along with Atheon's Epilogue, and then on my second run, I got Fatebringer and Vision of Confluence, and then I just never rated it again. Like, until Age of Triumphs, I was like, I'm done with Vault of Glass, I got everything.
I was one of the ones, while everyone was stuck at Forever 29, I think I had all of the VOG gear in 5 raids.
Oh my god, dude.
So, Anon, what's been your favorite moment playing Destiny? And we didn't ask you, Anon, what class do you play when you play Destiny? What do you main?
I've been a hunter since the beta, and it will never change. And actually, going up to the Dre event, I was actually like thinking like, should I get rid of my Titan and Warlock? Because like they just don't get played. I'm sort of sick of it. Titan is fun, don't get me wrong. Warlock isn't as bad as I used to think it was, but I'm a hunter. Absolutely.
So what's been your favorite moment on your hunter the last week or two?
Well, I haven't played since I got home from the Destiny 2 event, and then I played a little bit, and I was just like, and it's done. Like, Age of Triumph, without the Destiny 2 event, Age of Triumph seriously hardcore brought me back. I was like hours every day again. It was awesome. And I was super excited for Tuesdays because of the weekly reset. Like, I got like 12 palindromes, and they're all different. I don't care if they're good or bad. I'm like, I'm fucking collecting these. And but so my favorite Destiny related event, I guess I can do that.
Sure.
So that was actually right around the time that the linear fusion rifle was getting revealed as like the E3 event and everything, and everyone's talking about it. Also, along with that, a new weapon, an Amalon pulse rifle, got to be played with, and I'm watching some gameplay, and I'm looking at how this pulse rifle fires, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, pulse rifles as they are now, they're very vertical fire. They're very vertical recoil, but this one was a little more all over the place. Like, it sort of looked like grouping your shots, like it's not gonna be as easy. And I was thinking about it. I was like, so right now we're gonna have 6 weapons in the kinetic, or 6 types of weapons in the kinetic and the energy slot. And people are thinking like, okay, well, you got to balance your range. Like, you got to go scout rifle, hand cannon, because scout rifle will hit the long range, hand cannon will hit the close range. But actually, and this is my favorite moment, I realize there's another layer, and I'm so excited about this, because that layer actually adds another layer. We have the precise, as I'm calling them, the precise and spray weapons. The precise weapons are scout rifle, hand cannon, and sidearm. That's going from longest range to shortest range. The spray weapons from long to short would be pulse rifle, auto rifle, and submachine gun. So they will have less bullet damage, but more bullets to compensate. You know, like a scout rifle, you're using 3 hits, three
You're
shots.
getting me triggered. Why are you... Pulse rifles, you think are going to be this, like, little, like, Nerf weapons? They're just going to be, like, shooting out a couple, like, Poptarts?
Oh, no, not at all. I think that, like, obviously, you always, no matter what gun you're using, you're going to want to hit your headshots, but I think pulse rifles are going to be a little more forgiving on the body shots, you know, where, like, if you hit, like, 2 to the body and 1 to the head, you're still going to be doing, like, a good deal of damage, whereas 2 to the body and then that 1 headshot on a hand cannon, you're not getting that kill, you know. So then pulse rifle, auto rifle, submachine gun are going to be more forgiving. So it's all about this different, like, subgrouping within the groups that they have, where it's like, okay, so I do want a long range, so then we have the long, mid, and close. We have the scout and pulse, the auto and hand cannon, and the sidearm submachine gun. And then I also want my energy weapon, which does more damage to a person in their super, to be a gun that can, in my opinion, I'd want it to be a gun that's more forgiving if I miss a shot, if I don't hit a headshot. So I'm thinking like, okay, so then if I want to go long and mid, I can go kinetic hand cannon and energy pulse rifle. Because then I can keep my distance from the guy in the super, the guy that can just fucking walk up and kill me. I can keep my distance on him, deal more damage, and be more forgiven on not getting the headshots. And then for the sort of closer range engagements, I have my hand cannon, which is get those headshots, get that kill. But miss that headshot, maybe I need to switch it. I can just go to my pulse rifle and get them really quick. And I really like how intricate I think it's actually going to be, because it's really exciting. I think they actually called them freedom builds, and I really like that term because it feels exactly like, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, oh my god, like.
Yeah, I think that's, like, I was going through the story mission, like swapping like every 45 seconds, trying all different combos, the scout hand cannon, scout submachine gun, an auto rifle submachine gun, just spraying everything with bullets. And I think it's going to be so deep, and people, like you said, just don't really appreciate it. I want to know, RWG, why you're shooting that boss with Poptarts. That's my question for you.
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I thought I was not impressed with the pulse rifle, because that's what I use primarily, but that just could be because, it was a pulse rifle that I don't like, and I don't like every pulse rifle in Destiny. But I don't want the pulse rifle to be, like, second class to the scout. I mean, if I go head-to-head with a scout, I'm going to win.
See, I love the pulse rifle, and I love the pulse rifle in the D2 demo, and I didn't like the scout, so it's just kind of funny because you're the scout, or you're the pulse rifle user, and you didn't like it. But the pulse and the hand cannons were my favorite. When we played through that strike, that's what I used throughout it, because those were the two that I honed in on from playing through that story mission, is what I really liked the most. So what was your favorite moment of the last I know you haven't played a lot, RWG, because you've been sick, but when we have played, what's your favorite moment been?
I don't think I've played Destiny this week.
Well, did we not run at all? Maybe we haven't. Maybe we haven't since the last episode. Since we did the supremacy and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just wrapped it up after Iron Banner and haven't really played since, because I really haven't been feeling well. But normally, we always have some pretty good stories, and it usually surrounds raids, but we really haven't done any of that. Hopefully this weekend we can.
What's the best flavor Pop-Tart to shoot at bosses?
I hate Pop-Tarts, but I don't know why I said that. I was thinking of those guns, those little Nerf bullets that you get. I can't remember the name.
Well, I think that the pulse rifles will be fine. Like I said, I like that one that we used. But my favorite moment, I played a little bit this week, actually involved pulse rifles. And the other day, you were under the weather, and I got together with Tim at Tacoma, and we were playing a little, and we did some Crucible. And I was using, I think, a scout the first match, and at the end of the match, a hopscotch pilgrim dropped. And it's a gun that I used for a little while and loved, and I don't like getting rid of them if they're a good drop, so I've got like a ton in my vault. And I'm like, I'm gonna fucking use it again, because we're just sitting here fucking around. It's the end of Destiny, and it's like, whatever, I'm not really playing for anything. So I ranked it up, and the next match, I mean, I was just getting kill after kill after kill with it. I'm like, holy shit. And so then we went to, what's the map with the giant cannons that launch you across back and forth?
What?
I'm trying to think of it. Tip of my tongue. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one with the two things that launch you across the divide. The one we hate more than any other map in the game.
This is quite terrible that none of us can name this map.
I know what you're talking about.
Because it's such a terrible
map. With all the dead trees and shit.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
What is it, Anon? You should know this. You're supposed to know everything.
I don't know. It's one word.
It's Crossroads. Sorry, I remembered. I got notified about something. I'm trying to see it for myself before I bring it up here. So I was watching a video really quick. Okay. But it's Crossroads on the Oasis on Mars.
Yeah, so Crossroads, I was on the one side where the heavy spawns up on the wall, and where people like to snipe across from. And there've been occasion where I'll go up there with a scout and try to shoot people across, and it's really hard to kill with a scout from that distance. And I had like a super range hopscotch with really good stability, and I was just killing people across that divide, just left and right. And that's something I've never done with a scout. I was like, holy shit. and it was just you have to get a hopscotch RWG, and you need to try it out again, or bring out your Red Death, because I think it's the same archetype, and really use it again, because it was just so much fun, and it's the most fun I've had playing in a long time. I went to my vault, and I had, I think, 5 of them in there that were all different but really awesome rolls, and I pulled out all 5, so I've got nothing but like hopscotch pilgrims on me now. And we played again like yesterday or the day before, I think 2 days ago, and I was just cycling through as we played using different hopscotch pilgrims, and it was a lot of fun. So that was my favorite moment. It's such a fun gun, and I had forgotten how much fun I had when I used it briefly before. So
Hopscotch was actually a gun I got like week 1 of House of Wolves, and I kept it only because I thought it looked cool. I just put it in my vault and I never used it, and then when everyone was freaking out about it, I didn't even remember. I just was cleaning out my vault one day and I was like, oh shit. And it was actually a good roll, and I was just fucking 2-tapping everybody. It was great. It was so fun.
Yeah, it's that I love that body style. It's the old coiled hiss from the Dark Below body style, and that was like my favorite forever and ever and ever. And it's got they all, like 6 of them have the AOS scope, just really good. So do you have some breaking news, Anon? Did something come down the wire?
Someone claimed that in the scene when Gaul kicks you off of his ship, that you actually drop your ghost, which would be neat, because there is evidence to suggest that losing the light means you lose your ghost, like he's gone for that time period. Obviously he comes back, and it would be neat to see that, like, visually represented, and I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's a different scene and I'm just getting told the wrong scene, but it just looks like it was someone seeing something that wasn't actually there.
Well, I know we're getting a little long into the podcast, and RedWingGirl, I know that you're not feeling well, so gonna wrap it up so you can get some rest and hopefully get better quickly. I really want to thank both you, AnonPig, and zAnonymous. Both are Anons here today, for joining us. We really appreciate the 2 of you coming on. It's been really awesome finally getting to talk a little Destiny with both of you.
Thanks for having us. I actually learned a whole lot from all 3 of you.
Yeah, it was great being on.
RedWingGirl, I know that you are really not feeling well, and I just appreciate, again, every week getting to host the Destiny Truthcast alongside you, and really glad that you were able to make it today and spend this time with these guests.
Yeah, I'm sorry I feel so under the weather. It's difficult for me to concentrate. Both you guys, it's been really good to talk to you both. I see Z on the forums all the time, and I always like to read what you have to say. And Anon, you've brought a lot of eye-opening things about Grimoire that I hadn't really thought of before. So it's been interesting to get both of your viewpoints on some of the stuff going on in D2. And like you both, I'm pretty excited for the beta to come out, and Souls. It's always good to talk with you every week with our guests.
So I would like to thank everyone that is listening, SoundCloud, iTunes, Podbean, watching on YouTube. Really appreciate all of you, and anyone reading on the forums. Always love hearing your thoughts. And if anyone wants to join us here on the Destiny Truthcast, just reach out to RedWingGirl or myself and let us know, because we'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. So until next week, I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you very much. Oh, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
That's right. Happy Father's Day, everybody.